There's a lot of people that I went to school with that I have no idea what they're doing. I don't really care what they're doing. In my head. Hey everybody, if you're new here, I'm Ryan Liberty. I do mental health videos Monday through Friday, so if you want to help me in my mission of humanizing mental health, hit subscribe and hit the bell afterwards to get notified every time that I do a video. Tonight we're talking about social anxiety in school and bullying. So the thing about social anxiety is that it's a fear about being judged, a fear that somebody's going to think less of us or think something about us, and the spotlight's always on us, and it's always a fear of something that hasn't happened yet. However, when we're in school, there's a good chance that we've been criticized before, we've been looked down on, we've been ostracized. So we don't want to necessarily think of this as something that's pathological. There's something wrong with us for being a little bit on edge around people and a little bit afraid of people, because we may have experiences like bullying that make sense that we're afraid. This is also a period of our life where, you know, from middle school, high school, it depends on where you are in the world, college, you're going through changes, you're learning about yourself and your identity, and there's this normal period of narcissism as you go through that. And when people are narcissistic, they're defensive because they're always feeling that they're on guard, and related to social anxiety, the focus is always on them. And so when you feel like you have to hold this like standard of yourself up to be on guard against attacks from people, you're going to have social anxiety because you're going to think other people are doing the same thing and that they're going to attack you. So let's talk about bullying really quickly. Bullying, especially if it becomes physical, can bring on PTSD symptoms, and that could lead to social anxiety because your amygdala is going off and you're frightened of situations that remind you of the PTSD. And since the person who bullied you was a person, then any people might seem threatening to you, and so social anxiety, of course, would result from that. So I've been somebody who's been bullied in school. I know what that's like. It really sucks. And what I would encourage anybody who might be going through bullying to do is to try to stop it as quickly as you can. Get in touch with people who might be able to help you, you know, teachers, parents. I know that's not always possible for everybody. I know that doesn't feel safe. But get in touch with those people, get in touch with friends if possible. Just have an outside support system, even if it's online. And, you know, I know you have to be careful online that people don't know you already, so find like a support group or a forum or something where you can air what's going on with you to people who don't really know you, and they can support you and get you the help that you need. But if we just take bullying out of the equation, just socializing is really scary during school time because we are still learning about ourselves and we're learning how we relate to people, and that's why we're narcissistic, as I mentioned, during that time. And coming across different groups of people can feel really threatening because we don't know what to do. We're still learning, and that's okay, and that's acceptable. So a little bit of social anxiety is normal. What we should do is to practice getting to know people and practice opening up to people and being vulnerable. So find those people who are good with you, who know how to talk with you, who know how to listen to you, who validate your experience, and learn how to do that yourself. Learn how to listen to other people and get outside of your own head, because a lot of social anxiety comes from being in your own head and being afraid that people are going to judge you. That's all coming from in here. That doesn't mean that they're actually judging you. So if you can get out of here and listen to other people first, then you might find a friend, a confidant that you can talk with. So when things do get scary, when you're not really sure how to handle a social situation, you have somebody else who's on your team, and then they help you have some resilience to anything that could be traumatic that happens, like bullying or some kind of social situation where you're ostracized. Because ostracizing which is basically being outcast from a group or outcast from people, can be one of the worst things to go through. It can be a form of bullying, silent treatment, gaslighting. All this kind of stuff can happen in school, and it's really kind of rotten. But if you have friends, if you have people, even if they're not in your school, just people that you can talk with, that will go a long way to helping you with social anxiety. So I'm going to talk about some other stuff that you can do, but first I just want to continue talking about what we experience in school that has to do with social anxiety, because I think a lot of adults forget what it's like when we were in school. You know, we move on in life and we don't have to deal with the same kind of pressures and the same growing experiences that we did in school. So I want to validate those of you out there who are still in school who have social anxiety, because even just people in different grade levels can be intimidating. People of opposite sexes or same sexes, depending on your sexual orientation. You may still be figuring out your sexual orientation. You know, dating in itself is a social situation that causes anxiety for anybody when you're first learning how to do it. And you know, nobody really gets taught how to do these things. There's no formal like lesson plan on how to date and how to navigate all of this, how to learn about yourself. So we all go through that ourselves, and it does help a lot to have the support of other people who are going through it with us. But again, if you're afraid of people, if you have social anxiety, you may not have as much support as other people have. And if you don't have understanding parents at home, you don't have understanding relatives, it's difficult. So this is why I encourage you to get online and find people who aren't even in your school, just who get it, who are going through the same kind of thing. YouTube may actually be a great place to find those people. I think I want to touch on dating really quickly, because I think dating is so intimidating when we're in high school, especially middle school, college, because we're still learning how to do it and there's no perfect way. And I know like we've had dating apps emerge in the past decade or so, and so that kind of like objectifies people and puts them out there and makes people not so connected as they used to be. And I think that's a mistake, and it kind of encourages social anxiety actually, because you start to see people as less than human, and you start to not get to know them and know their fears and their vulnerabilities the way that you might when you had to do it the old-fashioned way of approaching people and talking with people and getting to know them. So I think what I would just let everybody know who's dating is that it's okay. Whatever you're going through, it's fine. I know it seems kind of cliche to say this, but you have your whole life to date and to find people, and it's okay. There's no like, you don't have to have sex now. You don't have to have a relationship now. It will happen. Trust me, in your life, it's gonna happen. There's no rush to have it happen right now. And so if you're not comfortable with something, don't jump into it. You know, if social anxiety is getting in the way, then maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's not the right time to be dating. Maybe it's not the right time to be exploring these things. You can explore them on your own. And actually that brings me to something else that I want to talk about, which is journaling. So it can be hard to talk about these things with other people, but we have thoughts that race through our heads when we have social anxiety, and we get afraid of what other people are going to think about us and how they're going to criticize us and judge us. And sometimes just getting that out on paper can get it outside of our heads and let the space come into our heads to be able to start thinking positive things again. So if we write down what we're feeling, it dumps it out of our head. And then I would encourage you, after you do something like that in a journal entry or something, write down the positives that could happen. Because a lot of what's happening up here is like the, what if they think this of me? What if I do this? What if that happens? And if you get out of your head, switch to the positive what ifs. What if it went right? What if you got what you were looking for? What if you had that friend that you didn't think you were ever going to have? What if you bonded over something? Like, think of the positive that could happen. What if meeting this new person and taking a chance and being vulnerable with them opened you up to a whole new possibility in your life that you never would have had otherwise? I think what's really important is to realize that you're not locked into this little slice of life that is school. Whatever happens here, good, bad, you'll be okay. You'll get through it and you'll learn from it, but it doesn't have to determine your whole life, and it's not as important as it may seem right now in the moment. So when we're feeling social anxiety and we're focusing on ourselves and we're afraid that people are going to judge us, we might be sweating, we might start to blush, and that might be scary because people can point those things out. That's okay. Other people are probably feeling those same fears, and you probably know somebody who has blushed and who has sweated, and it probably looked really terrifying to see them, and maybe you actually witnessed them get criticized for it too. But again, what I want to stress here is that whatever happens, you'll be okay and you'll get through it. And the people who are ridiculing you, they're not going to matter in your life in a couple of years, believe me. They are so unimportant. I know they seem important right now, but think 5 years ahead from now, you may not ever even have to see them again. There's a lot of people that I went to school with that I have no idea what they're doing. I don't really care what they're doing, and they don't affect my life at all. Now, something that will make your social anxiety worse is to avoid social situations. I know that seems like a good idea, and it may temporarily be a good idea in some instances. You know, if you see somebody coming towards you who you know is a known bully, it might be appropriate to avoid that person. But I would encourage you not to do what I did in high school, which is to sit with your headphones on and kind of shut yourself out from the world, because what you're doing there is you're training your brain that it's okay to be afraid of people, And it's okay to feel this anxiety, and you're reinforcing it actually, because every time somebody comes around, you're training your brain like, well, my safe space is here with my headphones on, or my safe space is reading a book and ignoring everybody else. And that's not how you want to train yourself. You want to be able to feel safe among people and safe around people. So when appropriate, put yourself in social situations. You know, obviously you're going to be going to class with people. Try to interact with people. If you're in a group, participate with them. Maybe there's a hobby after school that you could get involved with people who are like you. That way you don't have to feel so intimidated, because you know that they like the same things that you like. This is also why I mentioned finding people online, because you can always find people online who are like you, who like the same things, and you can find them in your age group and you'll find ways to relate to them. But we don't want to limit ourselves only to online. Of course, we want to meet people in person and understand that there's a living human being, a breathing person in front of us who has a lot of the same fears that we have, and they make a lot of the same mistakes that we do, and they're not perfect. And the more that we see that in other people, the more that we'll understand that it's okay in ourselves. So of course, when it comes to school, we also have tests and performance anxiety, and we're always comparing ourselves to other people in those regards. So what I would say to that is to not be so caught up in comparing yourself to other people. It's okay if you're not so great in one area as opposed to another area. We all have strengths, and we all have gifts, and we all have weaknesses too, and that's okay. Once you get out of school, a lot of this stuff is not going to be as important as it seems right now. I know that there is a standard you have to meet to continue on with your schooling and to get to where you need to be, but don't worry about being perfect, and don't worry about getting the highest level and the highest grades, because ultimately, I promise you, once you get out of school, there are going to be very few people who actually care about that. You may also have some performance anxiety when it comes to going up and giving presentations in front of the class. I would say to that, maybe try practicing around people that you know, that you're comfortable with, your parents, your siblings, your friends, whoever it is. Maybe even go on webcam and do a presentation to people that you talk to online. You know, however you can practice it to get used to the feeling, try that. Now, of course, if social anxiety is like an ongoing problem and you do find you're avoiding these situations and you just can't seem to handle it, it may be appropriate to see a counselor, maybe to see a psychologist, and maybe even to get on medication. There's no shame in that. It's perfectly okay. People do it. If you have difficulty with self-esteem, with stress regulation, I have some free worksheets up on my Patreon page. I'll put the link above. They are not a substitute for therapy by any means, but they may be helpful in addition to therapy, and they may just help you get to thinking about some of these things in a new way. So I encourage you to check those out. I'll put the link above. If you're new here and you like mental health, you want to help me in my mission on humanizing mental health, hit subscribe and hit the bell afterwards to get notified every time I do a new video. And now I'd love to hear from you. What has your experience been like with school and anxiety? Even if you're out of school, share your stories of what social anxiety has been like for you when you've been through school, or maybe if you're currently in school and you're brave enough, share that below so we can all relate to each other and understand that this is something we all go through. It's a normal part of going through school, and if it becomes a disorder, that's also okay. There's ways to treat it, so don't worry about that. As always, everybody, thank you for being here, and I'll see you around.